so many years after that, in that next 10-year period, and particularly when Jackie Robinson came in, the World Series were being played between those teams. We used to call it the Subway World Series, okay? But my memories go back to that period, 1945, 46. In 46, Branch Rickey, who was he was a part owner, actually, general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he was a very religious man, okay? And he decided it was time to really integrate the major leagues.
Now, was there something that was it something he just randomly came up with?
Well,
or?
You can read different things about it, but I think that it basically was his own inner drive.
Okay.
People thought it might happen sometime, but he really wanted it to happen. And he was a businessman, too.
Okay.
And he could see the value,
And if you watch interviews of Jackie Robinson later in life, Branch Rickey was a huge influence on his life. This was someone who believed in him and encouraged him. However, I'll let Mr. O'Connor go on, but I think it's very significant to say, and I don't know if we're there yet, to talk about the agreement they had. And I know he was in the minors for a while, and I did read that when he was in the minors, he was not allowed to stay in the same hotel as the rest of the team.
So he couldn't even be with the whole team,
That's right.
hang out with the team?
That's right. So what Branch Rickey did is he asked his staff to go out and find the top player in the Negro League because that's the guy I want to bring in. And so they found Jackie Robinson. He interviewed him in early, actually 45. And when he talked to him, the thing that was famous was that he said, I need somebody of character. I need somebody who's strong. And he said he needed a Negro player with guts not to fight back, quote unquote.
Turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek. So, and Jackie was really a fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was kind of hard to go down. But of course, he wanted to play ball because he was a terrific ball player. So, with that understanding, Rickey signed him to a contract, $5,000 a year. Okay, in 1946.
I have to say about that $5,000. I remember Janelle brought up the fact that it was only $5,000.
Yeah.
I was like, man, compared to today when they get millions and millions of dollars.
That was big time money. I mean, gas was 25 cents a gallon. Okay,
See, I can't even imagine gas being 25
But I
cents.
think even later on, I think his salary was like $35,000 a year.
Highest paid on the Dodgers.
Yeah, $35,000. But in today's dollars, that was like 300 and some thousand.
Right.
But it's still not like the $120 million contracts we're seeing today.
Yeah.
So,
but I'll tell you the other thing that I came across is, not only did he play that 1 year with the Kansas City Monarchs, the Negro League, but he went to the All-Star game, okay, and he batted .397, okay, so he's a terrific player.
What do you mean by I'm not too familiar with baseball? I just know MMA stuff. So what does what does that mean?
.397 means .397 tenths at a time. Okay. He'll get a hit.
Oh,
that's pretty good. I mean,
a batting
matter of
average.
fact, anything above 300 is considered very, very good.
Just ask us even.
Okay.
Hey, this year Altuve.
I just went. I'm 25, and I went to my first baseball game this year.
And you had fun.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
That's
just to kind of move it along a little bit. So he only played 1 year with the. Actually, it was the first year he went up to Montreal. It was a minor league team in the Dodgers. That's what Branch Rickey signed him to. So 1 year he played with Montreal. And then the next spring, spring of 1947, they brought him down for spring training in Florida with the Dodgers. Okay. And so this was the first time that a Negro player had played on a major league team. Okay, so that's when he broke it. Since 1880, this thing goes back to never had been one. So that was a big, significant occurrence. He played first base because Eddie Stanky was the second baseman and he was a big star. But normally he would play second base or shortstop. So anyway, he played first base the first year. He had a great year. He was actually voted Rookie of the Year in 1947, okay? And he excited everybody. I mean, he could steal bases, he could hit home runs, he was just outstanding. As a matter of fact, that year he bought a .297, okay, according to the records.
Okay.
Had 175 hits, stole 29 bases, all right? So he was really something. But again, that year with the Dodgers, he was then voted the Rookie of the Year, okay, with the Dodgers.
In that first year that he signed, okay.
That's right, first year. Now he had a lot of problems too then too. there's taunting from the other players within his team. Some
Yeah.
didn't want to even play with him.
His own teammates
Yeah.
gave him a hard time.
Yeah.
And, it's not a cohesive team if you have that, but he held his head up high and
Right.
did fight back.
Well, he kind of well, I had a question, Roy, before we go too much into, the problems that he faced. You said, you saw Jackie Robinson. You were around him around that time. Can you kind of describe as just an audience member?
Oh, well, he was just exciting, particularly because if he got on base, he was kind of like Trey Turner for the National. I mean, he was a speedster, and he stole bases. He'd steal second, and before they knew what happened, he was going to third. So it was very exciting to watch. It was the old black and white TV.
Yeah.
And, Ebbets Field is all the way down in Brooklyn. So I never actually got to Ebbets Field, but I saw him a lot on TV with my father. Okay, and that was the early days of
And
television.
what was kind of like, within, you can only speak about your community. Can I describe, like, what was the vibe when it got announced that Jackie Robinson, first black person?
Exciting. It was so exciting because, New York media, I mean, we had the three major teams in both leagues, the American and National. So he had plenty of coverage. And, one or the other was going to be in the World Series, one of those teams. So, it was throughout the whole New York metropolitan area. But, even at those days, I was young, 10, 11, 12, growing up in school. The World Series would be broadcast on the radio in the classrooms of our school.
Really?
I went to parochial school in those days, and we had the nuns and everything. Yeah, it stopped everything, in the afternoon. The games would come on because they played them all in the afternoon.
See, schools today, they won't even let you bring your cell phone in. Like, y'all had a full-on radio
That
playing.
was the one exception, absolutely. And so it was very exciting when that came on. And you knew it was close by. In 48, they traded Stanky, so he finally got over to second base, from first base. But he had a great year, but the Dodgers ended up third in the league, so they didn't win the pennant or anything or go on to anything. But
all right, so let's just transition back. So we see that you and, the whole area was excited to see him, on the team and stuff, but not everyone was excited about it. Do y'all have any facts or, like, stories that, the things that he endured, problems on the team? We mentioned that his own team didn't even respect him.
Well, he got taunted. It's interesting because I read more about the taunting and the intolerance more from other baseball players. I didn't read a lot about how the crowds reacted to him. It would be interesting, like, do you have any, Mr. O'Connor?
Yeah, from what I read too, he brought out the African American audience unbelievably. They used to go root for their own teams in their own league, but when he got in there, they just flooded the ballpark. So they were setting it. They integrated the ball. They were, they were setting records on attendance.
That's really good.
With him, so that's what he was a big draw. They were all coming to see him play. So it was, it was something else.
And the other thing that happened, he was the trailblazer. He was the one in the forefront. Once he opened those floodgates and got an African American player into the major leagues, I think several years after that, by that time, there were 150 other African American players accepted. But he had to be that person to break the color barrier, break the color line. And that takes a lot of courage. And, I believe, Mr. O'Connor, they had 10 years in baseball?
10 years, yeah. When he was brought up at the Dodgers, he was 28. And he played till he was 38, okay? Yeah,
And I know the Dodgers finally won the World Series when he was part of it in 1955. Do you remember that? You want to talk about
Yes, that I remember even better because by then I just graduated from high school. Okay, I was following him, but it was the first time the Dodgers beat the Yankees in the World Series. It was almost like an annual event, the Yankees and the Dodgers. But he played third base then because they had brought up a young player called Junior Gilliam, who played second. But he played most of the season at third, and he wasn't as big a contributor, as in previous years because he was starting to be affected by diabetes. And so it slowed him down a little bit, didn't steal as many bases, but he still was a major factor. And of course, that was pretty exciting. 7-game series, that they played. And I didn't realize it, but in kind of research, I found out he didn't even actually play the 7th game of that.
He did not?
No, did not, but he got his World Series ring, of course, and he played 6 games and was a major factor in that. But one other thing, I would just back up, because it's another exciting thing, which I remember very well back in school. 1951, There was a tie at the end of the season between the New York Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers for the league title. So they had a 3-game playoff. You know, like we have our division playoffs now, but they had like a wild card thing, 3-game playoff. So they each had won 1 game, and then they were playing the old Polo Grounds in New York. And I remember listening on the radio, Bobby Thompson hit the shot heard round the world, 2 outs in the 9th, okay? Last up bat, and he hits a home run to win for the Giants over the Dodgers, okay? But that was that was 1951, okay? And Jackie, of course, was a big player. He batted like .335 that year, okay? And he stole a lot of bases, 105 runs. But again, there's a lot of highlights from him.
So it seems like he had a very accomplished career in baseball, not just for breaking the color barrier, but he actually did a good job as just a baseball player.
Yeah.
And then after that, they won that World Series in 1955. You know, they reached the highlight.
Yeah.
And I think he retired the following year.
He retired in '56.
Yeah.
He actually retired, and he took a position with Chock full of Nuts Coffee Company, an executive position.
Yeah.
Okay? But you know, the diabetes would really affect him quite a bit by then, so that was significant.
Well, yeah, let's talk. You know, we touched upon his early life, military, and how he was in the baseball. Let's touch on a little bit of the time we have left. What did he do afterwards? You know, did he just disappear, or what did he do after he retired from baseball?
Well, actually, I didn't know this, but he was also the first black television analyst for Major League Baseball.
Really?
So that's, I think, a significant accomplishment. And he was very articulate. If you listen to him talk in interviews, I was watching him on Dick Cavett, the Dick Cavett Show from 1972, and at that point he was not looking so good because of his diabetes, but very articulate man, a very passionate man, and you could see that. I think the civil rights and the passion he had for civil rights for African Americans was almost more important to him ultimately than his baseball. And as Roy mentioned, he was vice president of personnel at Chock full of Nuts, and I kind of remember that, the canned coffee.
That's right.
My grandmother used to drink that, so I didn't know that either. And that's a pretty. So he had the baseball career, fought the military injustice, had the baseball career, had all kinds of accolades. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1962 for baseball, which
on the
is
first ballot.
On the first ballot, and that's like the pinnacle of an achievement.
First time eligible.
Yes.